With her hands being tied and a rope wrapped around her mouth, the crowd kept yelling at the evil woman about to be executed for the sin of deceiving the whole nation. I'm sorry, I thought this was chapter 1? Did we miss a few chapters before this? A woman with long, silky golden hair warns the Grand Duke to keep his distance from Kiara Parvis, his own legitimate daughter. Kiara, desperate to escape, spots her older sister, Cassette, seemingly involved in her fate. Amidst the deafening screams of the crowd, blood splatters everywhere as she glances back one final time at Cassette and their father. This is one bloody start. On the day the Grand Duke received his title, a prophecy was revealed, foretelling a crisis for the continent and the emergence of a saintess, the sole daughter of the Guardians of the Empire. Chosen by the great water goddess Beatrice, the Parvis family, known for their water spirit lineage, was destined to bring rain to the barren land cursed by the devil once the daughter comes of age. Kiara, the saintess, was Ludwig Parvis's firstborn and grew up yearning for her father's love, having lost her mother at a young age. Poor Kiara. Despite her modest and sincere nature, Kiara's father remained indifferent to her efforts to gain his attention. Her desperation led her to show him her achievements and even staged an accident, hoping for his concern, but to no avail. What a horrible father! No one deserves this. For 18 years, Kiara's life revolved around seeking her father's validation, until the arrival of Cassette, the daughter of the former Grand Duchess, and the eldest daughter of the Grand Duke, changed everything. What matters to Ludwig is to know who his real child is, so he lets Cassette inside the palace to prove herself. But to Kiara, everything around her changed after that. Even the servants can tell the difference between them. Cassette is a kind person, while Kiara isn't approachable because she's so dignified. But more than anything, Cassette resembles the Grand Duke more than Kiara does. I feel like some of these people didn't listen to their biology classes about genetics and all. Outside, Kiara keeps swinging her sword out of frustration that Cassette just suddenly appears and claims that she's blood-related. I mean, who wouldn't be, right? A face that looks just like her father? It's indeed suspicious that she grew up as a commoner as well. But Kiara is so confident that she is the real daughter because all the women of House Parvis are born with the power of only one saintess. Maybe Cassette is a witch who can shapeshift? We need to find out what's her deal. It means that one is a fake and will bring disaster to the kingdom, and the only way to prove that is whoever can contact the spirits first. If Cassette can do this first, then Kiara will die as a fake. Cassette offered Cosmos flowers, hoping to befriend Kiara, but her cold reception made her intentions clear. Undeterred, Cassette asked if Kiara's hostility stemmed from not being Ludwig Parvis's true daughter, as her mother had been framed and driven away for deceiving him into becoming the Grand Duchess. Despite the revelation, Cassette encouraged Kiara not to shoulder guilt for her mother's deeds. Kiara, unable to contain her anger, swung her sword as a warning against insulting her mother further, hinting at severe consequences. Ugh, this girl is horrible. My patience just cannot. Later that day, Ludwig remembers the time when the Grand Duchess wanted to name their child Christian if it's a boy and Cassette if it's a girl. He cannot decide quickly about Cassette, but her face really resembles his. In her father's office, she tries to argue that she can't let Cassette accuse her mother of adultery. But Ludwig seems not to be on her side, and soon, like he ever was, he will know if it is just an accusation or the truth. Kiara leaves the room, remembering how her mother assured her that she's Ludwig's one and only nymph. She falls to her knees, crying how her father doubts about her legitimacy. Seriously, Ludwig, she's trying her best to be noticed, but Cassette gets all the credit without breaking a sweat? You are one good example of a terrible father. Cassette suddenly appears, provoking Kiara once more. Kiara forcefully pushes her hand away, warning her not to touch. As she catches her breath, Kiara questions why Cassette is wandering the main building. Cassette implies it shouldn't be surprising, as she is Parvis's eldest daughter, with Ludwig's permission to access the third floor alongside Kiara. The servants accidentally eavesdrop on Deputy General Joseph and Kiara discussing political matters. Amused, they mock Kiara as if she passed a knight entrance exam and gained approval. Despite tradition dictating Parvis children become knights at 18, serving as leaders for 3 years, Kiara acts like a true knight, meddling in everything. They sympathize with Joseph, recognizing his talent and skills, and feel sorry for him as Kiara often takes authority despite his role as deputy general. Honestly, can't Kiara take a break with these kinds of people? They are for real the worst bunch. Mina, one of the servants, complains about how Kiara commands them to do this and to do that. She even argues that Kiara is a fake child. Unfortunately, Kiara hears this, and so the other servants warn her to stop. But well, she wants trouble and points out that Kiara is not the daughter of the Grand Duke. Where did she get the audacity to insult the lady of the house? Without a second thought, Kiara slaps her and orders the guards to whip her. Well deserved. That evening, Kiara prepares to greet her father, but Cassette beats her to it, pleading with Ludwig not to dismiss her maid. Kiara tries to explain to her father that Mina had insulted her in the past, but he remains skeptical and asks the other servants for their account of the incident. To Kiara's surprise, the servants claim that she was being distant and cold. She glances at Cassette, who looks pleased, despite facing her own biases and prejudices. Can someone please give our MC a true friend and loyal subject? My heart breaks for her. Ludwig asks Cassette for confirmation, and guess what? She cries while clinging to him instead. Ugh, such a drama queen. Kiara argues that it isn't true at all, but Ludwig slaps her for keeping him disappointed all the time. Ludwig, you are not hot at all. You're just hot-tempered. Kiara tries to call out to her father, but he stops her, refusing to be addressed as father. He punishes her by ordering a month of confinement in separate quarters, wanting her out of his sight. Cassette is disappointed with the lenient punishment, and Kiara almost loses her temper, but refrains from laying a hand on her, fearing further trouble. In her isolation, Kiara observes how Ludwig treats Cassette better and vows to prove her power over the spirits before Cassette can. On Cassette's birthday, she gains control of the spirits, and Beatrice obeys her commands. While some congratulate her, others accuse Kiara of deception and fear her supposed evil magic. The false accusations lead to Kiara being sentenced to death, considered a harbinger of disaster. But before the sentence is carried out, a magician casts a spell, transporting her back to her room as she struggles with chest pains. Great! Thanks, Mr. Magician! The vivid memory of her decapitation assures Kiara that it wasn't a dream. She is certain she died. As she surveys her surroundings, she wonders if this is the afterlife, but the presence of everyone as before suggests her father executed them too. Panic sets in, and she recalls her younger brother Zeke, and she hurriedly searches for him, hoping he's unharmed. Before her execution, Zeke had visited her in the cell, pleading to run away together, as he didn't want to be with those snakes either. However, Kiara refused to involve him in her escape and advised him to leave instead. No, they're good siblings. Kiara realizes that there are so many familiar faces, younger than she remembers, so she asks Zeke about the date. It's still the 13th of August, 1295, the year she turned 18. That's right, she returned to the past. But who did this and why? Surprising Zeke with an invitation to breakfast, Kiara notices his gloomy demeanor, reminded of her habit of leaving early to greet her father. Realizing her mistake, she decides to prioritize those who truly care about her. You go, girl. That's the right decision. In the meantime, Ludwig wakes up from a nightmare where Joseph insists that Kiara didn't deceive him intentionally and should not be executed. Regrettably, he didn't listen, and Kiara, alongside a little girl in the crowd, called out to him one last time before her head flew from the guillotine blade. I hope this will be a Ludwig lesson in a change of heart. Later that day, Ludwig's assistant notices that Kiara didn't come to greet the Grand Duke. Ludwig himself isn't in his good condition, so his assistant advises him to rest. He can't remember anything from that horrible dream, but the sadness seems like it'd tear his heart apart is still fresh, and so he orders to send a therapist to his daughter. I'm sorry, sir, but you're the one who badly needs one. In the library, Kiara realizes that this day is 2 months advanced upon Cassette's arrival in the palace. Cassette herself made it clear that Kiara was the real one, but how was she able to manifest her powers 2 years later after Zeke's birthday banquet? The Oracle predicted only one nymph, but Kiara questions whether Cassette's ability to summon Beatrice was just an illusion. Unable to unravel the mystery of her time travel, she gives up on that train of thought. Determined to investigate everything before her death sentence, she considers seeking answers from the Mage's Tower, but deems it useless. Then, her servant informs her about a therapist, even though Kiara believes she is perfectly fine. Kiara used to beg for her father to save her, and now he's sending a therapist? Nah, tell her to check him instead. On the training grounds, Kiara watches the Knight's Order application test, sitting beside Joseph. Memories of his protection even during her final moments flood back. She reflects on feeling inferior due to her status-based position and how she used to oppose him constantly. Now, she has something important to share with him. Wait, is it a love confession? Sorry for getting your hopes up, but Kiara is just sorry for borrowing Joseph's position. At that moment, Kiara instructs Joseph to handle the work without seeking her opinion. Later, she congratulates the successful candidates on passing the test and announces a welcome party, generously offering to cover all expenses. However, some whisper that her presence would make things tense. Joseph is prepared to confront those who speak ill, but Kiara surprises them by declaring she won't attend the party. She apologizes for her previous insensitivity and promises not to repeat it. As she leaves the grounds, the stone-hearted knights realize they had misjudged her all along. But can we blame them when Kiara's eyes look murderous? Joseph decides to go as a representative and apologize. On his way there, he's puzzled by what she said earlier. He once sensed her disapproval, but now, it's as if she's transformed, shedding her previous hostility. Kiara enters Ludwig's room, expressing gratitude for the therapist he sent, but he dismisses her, urging her to write instead of wasting his time. Excuse me, sir, but Kiara is no longer a pushover like before. Addressing his concerns, she assures him that she would never interrupt him for trivial matters. She then explains her decision to stop greeting him every morning, wanting to avoid making him uncomfortable with her greed for his time, especially when he has numerous tasks at hand. However, she doesn't end there. She also reveals her intention to step down as the captain of the Knights for 2 months. That's our girl. Kiara believes that she'll eventually have to relinquish her position when Cassette arrives, so she chooses to step down voluntarily. Besides, she has various investigations to pursue. Though Ludwig initially objects, Kiara persuades him, emphasizing her exhaustion. However, one thing has been bugging Ludwig all along. Kiara didn't call him father. Serves you right for what you did, or at least what you'll do in the future. In her room, Kiara wonders if her father lived happily with his real daughter and if everyone was content with her death. Joseph interrupts, reminding her of the party later. Kiara clarifies she'll give up her position to someone with talents, not just due to tradition. This angers Joseph, who reassures her that the Knights value her leadership and training skills, which justify the custom of her bloodline. Hey, Joseph is a cutie, especially with those green eyes. Joseph also resolves the misunderstanding between the Knights and Kiara, explaining the respect for her high rank. And he sounds caring towards Kiara too. Sweet. That night, Kiara realizes she's acknowledged despite her father's lack of appreciation. She attends the party, warmly welcomed by everyone. At the party, Arthur encourages Kiara to chug a mug of beer. Despite their delight in seeing their captain having fun, Kiara announces she's no longer their captain. Emotions surface, but everyone wishes her well and promises to wait for her return. Under the influence of alcohol, Kiara becomes emotional and realizes they are discussing the indifferent Grand Duke. The alcohol loosens her tongue, and she admits her frustration at her father's lack of concern, even when she intentionally rolled down the stairs. The Knights are upset to hear this and advise her to have fun with them instead of studying all the time. This is actually typical, even in the real world. Children trying to meet their parents' standards and do all kinds of shenanigans just to get their loving attention, but to no avail. Kiara agrees and lets out a genuine laugh. She didn't think it'd be so fun. Just let it all out, girl. We're here for you. When Raina brings her back to the mansion, Joseph kicks Arthur's foot when he's about to ask if he also wanted to have time with Kiara. Of course, he's still in denial. Just leave the man be, Arthur. Joseph discovers Kiara's unhappiness with her father, and he learns that others feel the same way. Meanwhile, Arthur realizes Kiara's true nature. Not scary and stiff, but rather soft and kind of cute. Joseph cautions him to be respectful to their captain, but he also agrees with Arthur's observation. With a hangover, Kiara asks Rose to clear her afternoon schedule. As Rose brushes her hair, Kiara ponders what Rose would do if she could live as she pleases. Rose reveals her desire to go on a journey, and Kiara immediately approves, offering to cover her expenses. Wow, that's every employee's dream. This moment makes Kiara realize that work isn't everything. She wonders if she wasn't born in the Parvis family, would her life be different? Following Rose's recommendation, Kiara explores books about the lives of noble ladies. In the garden, she discreetly questions if anyone else can see spirits, trying not to raise suspicion. Then, the rumors of her being a boring loner with no close friends come to mind. Suddenly, Arthur arrives with honey water from Joseph to help with her hangover. As he prepares to leave, she seeks advice on connecting with people beyond the mansion. Arthur suggests she smile more, as her demeanor can be scary, similar to the Duke. See? No DNA test needed. Sorry, Cassette. After that, Arthur is of a big help for giving her a lot of tips to work on. We love supportive ones like Arthur, right guys? Later that evening, Rose brings the recommended books but advises Kiara not to read before sleeping, warning of staying awake all night. Ignoring Rose's advice, Kiara begins reading about Stella and the Count Graham meeting in the summer garden. To her surprise, the story takes an unexpected turn, where the Count's hand slides up in her dress and you know what comes after. We'd like to see that too, but with Kiejo's version. And in a moment of panic, she throws the book on the floor, her face turning red. Us too. In her defense, Kiara admits she's not accustomed to reading such books, yet she finds herself staying awake till morning. When Rose asks her if she likes the book, Kiara can't openly show her approval, particularly for that part. Curious, Rose hurries to the servants' room to inquire about the side story of Lady Stella's exhilarating summer vacation. The other servants are astonished to discover that Kiara reads romance novels instead of the Bible or academic books, not to mention the steamy content of the book. Rose defends her that she's just curious about the lives of regular nobles. Well, you can't be sure about that, Rose. In the library, Kiara searches for records about spirits. However, even House Parvis, the descendants of spirit arts, knows little, having agreed not to delve into the power bestowed by the goddess. Consequently, there are scarce materials on the subject. Later, Kiara overhears the servants discussing the romance novel she read. She wants to join the conversation, but she's mindful of maintaining her dignity. As she discreetly listens, one of the servants notices her and they quickly apologize and leave, misunderstanding her intentions. Feeling down while walking through the hallway, Kiara encounters Rose and confesses her enjoyment of the book but couldn't admit it due to her dignity. She shares her favorite scenes with Rose, who is delighted to see her lady having fun. And yes, that's the kind of conversation she wants to experience. Ludwig prepares to ride the carriage but reminisces about Kiara, who used to send him off. Robert informs him that his daughter is occupied with researching spirits in the library. While holding his head, Ludwig wobbles, attributing it to fatigue, though he suspects it might be due to recurring nightmares. Meanwhile, Kiara gazes out of the window, feeling a tinge of jealousy as she remembers how easily Cassette interacts with others. But can we blame her if all she ever did was to impress her father? Putting her feelings aside, Kiara writes a letter to her grandfather, Marquess Simon Edinburgh, who is cunning and avaricious, seeking his support to counter potential future challenges, like history repeating itself. She plans to meet him discreetly, attending a gathering from another house. As Kiara asks Rose to bring all the invitations she received, Rose gets excited, imagining Kiara having a fateful encounter like Stella in the novel. Kiara's interest grows, and she volunteers to check the invitations herself. Shortly after, Ludwig arrives and sees Kiara visibly upset because Robert threw out all the invitations. Now calm down, Kiara. You always threw it away before. Ludwig is surprised by his daughter's interest in accepting the invitations. He reminds her that House Parvis has always maintained neutrality, being chosen to avoid useless conflicts. However, she bluntly expresses her frustration with staying in the mansion. Period. Ludwig's eyes widen at his daughter's reaction, and even the servants are terrified by her boldness towards the Grand Duke. Nonetheless, Ludwig remains composed and asks about her plans. To everyone's surprise, she mentions that she's looking for a husband, but she quickly retracts the statement, deeming it an excuse. Ludwig appears relieved by this, but Kiara questions if, as long as the house remains unharmed, he wouldn't care about her actions. Right? Ludwig turns around and leaves, but he orders Robert to report what event she attends, who she meets, and what she does. Oh, look what we have here. Possibly a concerned father? Nah. Kiara notices Arthur and Joseph talking and decides to join them. She hints about a newly discovered hobby, but feels too shy to share it outright. Arthur offers to take her to the casino, one of his hobbies that he openly shares with others. Kiara considers accepting, not wanting to hurt Arthur's feelings by declining. Aw, he's just trying to share his interest with her. Cute. So she agrees to it. Joseph volunteers to take responsibility for her safety. Arthur is so shocked because Joseph hates the casino, but the latter just tells him to keep quiet. Something's blooming within you, Joseph. We can clearly tell. Kiara suddenly realized what she had agreed to, but as long as she abstained from gambling, she was content to watch. Joseph noticed her tense fist and inquired if something was amiss. To make amends for the previous drunkenness, he offered her a tonic. Though she couldn't recall that day, he assured her that the nights had enjoyed being near her. This time, he promised it would be just as enjoyable. We hope so. In the early morning, Kiara welcomes Viscountess Shore, who will assist her in preparing for an upcoming gathering. While Lady Shore speaks, Kiara appears lost in her own thoughts. Lady Shore snaps at her, but Kiara apologizes, and Lady Shore understands, relating it to her son's similar disinterest in social gatherings due to his intense focus on studying magic. Intrigued, Kiara requests to meet Lady Shore's son, and she gladly agrees. Could meeting this son be the answer to the time travel that happened with Kiara? Descending the stairs, Kiara is approached by a hesitant servant, who hands her the book that Rose told her to give to Kiara. Two more servants join them, and Kiara seizes the opportunity to strike up a conversation, asking about the book's contents. As they discuss the plot, one of the servants mentions the upcoming gathering Kiara is set to attend. They surely get along very well with Kiara now. They continue talking about the gathering, and when they arrive at the topic of Kiara's partner for the gathering, it's when Kiara realizes that she hasn't thought of who will be her partner for that day. Suddenly, Joseph appears, saying that he has come to escort Kiara. Oh my, he looks so dashing. Can't believe he didn't crush your mind for 1 second, Kiara. We are cross with you. Arthur and Reina then appear, saying that they should go together, and Reina secretly whispers to Kiara that they will be going to the casino. As Kiara, Joseph, Arthur, and Reina are on their way out of the house, Zeke sees them, and Kiara then decides to bring him too, making Zeke beam with excitement. Such an adorable kiddo. While riding in their carriage, Zeke is taken aback to learn they're headed to a casino and vents his frustration at the knights for bringing Kiara along. Calmly, Kiara reassures him that the casino is legal and they're there merely to observe and learn about the outside world. Arriving at the casino, Kiara is captivated by the surroundings. Meanwhile, Arthur persistently encourages Zeke to play, but he stands his ground, explaining that gambling can lead to financial troubles without self-control. Way to go, Zeke! It's always a good decision not to give in to gambling. Romantic fangirl approved. Kiara then abruptly ends their conversation, saying that she wants to try the roulette, so Arthur explains to her how that game works. After playing the said game, she happily exclaims that she wants to try more and ends up gaining a lot of chips from winning. What a beginner's luck she has! During their conversation about what to do with Kiara's winning chips, a casino clerk in uniform interrupts them, delivering a message from Count Sebier. The message invites Kiara to play a high-stakes game. After reading it, Kiara declines the Count's offer, expressing her reluctance to bet large sums of money. However, she remains open to participating in smaller games. That's a good decision there, Kiara. In one of the corners of the casino, it reveals that there is a guy that's been eyeing Kiara. Who could this man be? He looks so dreamy, especially in those red clothes. The Count agrees to Kiara's condition of playing only small games. She takes a handful of chips from Reina's pouch and sets aside the rest for their meal later. They all move to the VIP room where Count Sebier warmly welcomes Kiara and proposes a poker game. Despite being unfamiliar with the game, Kiara surprisingly triumphs in her first attempt. So lucky! I guess when it rained luck, you got it all. Except for the dad part. Oops, sorry, bad joke. After witnessing Kiara's initial victory, the Count warns her that things won't be easy anymore. True to his words, he starts winning consistently, taking all the chips she had set aside for the game. As Kiara suggests they should leave, she catches the Count hiding cards up his sleeves, revealing that he has been cheating throughout the entire game. Ugh, what a dirty player! Out of nowhere, a man emerges and swiftly subdues the Count, having him taken away. Turning to Kiara, he kneels and kisses her hand. This enigmatic stranger then extends an invitation for tea, which Kiara graciously accepts. Again, so lucky. At the casino bar, the man introduces himself as Aiden Castro, and Kiara introduces herself as Kira, hiding her noble lineage. Aiden confesses that he has been observing her since her arrival, choosing a more respectful approach instead of direct flirting. Meanwhile, Kiara's companions discreetly observe the pair from a distance. Reina warns that Aiden has a reputation for indiscriminate flirting with every woman he encounters. Okay, I take it back. He is not handsome. He is bad news. Or is he? We are kinda colorblind. After their charming encounter, Aiden invites Kiara for a weekend meal, and she joyfully accepts. When Kiara returns to her companions, they're stunned by her evident infatuation with Aiden. I mean, who wouldn't be with that face? While her friends are speechless, Kiara believes it must be fate and wonders if Aiden could be her partner for the gathering. Girl, I know he's unbelievably gorgeous, but isn't it too fast? How about our Joseph? Later, Kiara confides in Rose about her meeting with Aiden and seeks advice on planning their date as a commoner, having pretended to be just a regular girl. Rose suggests a commoner's favorite, a scenic airship ride to explore the capital. Kiara loves the idea and contemplates renting the entire airship to ensure an intimate date without any crowd. Such a romantic Kiara is. In the garden, Kiara enjoys the flowers, plucking one for herself, when Joseph approaches and calls out to her. He asks if she's going somewhere, but she replies that she's simply in a good mood. Unexpectedly, she hands the flower to Joseph and excuses herself. Stunned by her gesture, Joseph is left speechless. William and Reina soon join them, equally surprised by Kiara's radiant mood. William jokingly suggests that she may have found a lover, causing Reina to mention an upcoming date with Aiden. This revelation prompts Joseph to confirm with Reina about Aiden's reputation as a playboy, leading both Joseph and Reina to plan on intervening the date. Yes, please, protect our Kiara from that playboy Aiden. The day for the date has come. In the middle of the town, Kiara and Aiden meet each other. Aiden then kisses Kiara's hands, making her nervous. He's really good at being so flirty. No wonder our girl Kiara is head over heels for him. I mean, us too. On the other hand, Joseph, Zeke, Arthur, and Reina are spying on the two and are on their mission to protect Kiara from Aiden. Kiara and Aiden settle themselves in one of the restaurants in the capital. While Kiara is eating her meal, Aiden observes the way she acts, which baffles him since it's so natural for Kiara to act like she's from a high family and wonders who exactly Kiara is. Kiara then blushingly asks Aiden if he can make time for her next Wednesday, but Aiden tells her that he has plans already for that day, which is a book meeting with his friends. Such a liar! The truth is that he's meeting another woman that day. Aiden tries to make up for the schedule conflict by dedicating the day solely to Kiara. He asks her if she has any place in mind to go after their meal. Kiara suggests taking an airship to get a panoramic view of the capital, but Aiden dismisses the idea, citing airship schedules and distance. Unexpectedly, Kiara reveals that she already rented an airship, leaving Aiden in disbelief. As the airship arrives at the restaurant, Aiden wonders about Kiara's influence, even considering if she might be related to the Imperial family, a thought that unsettles him during the ride. You played with the wrong lady, boy. Seeing Aiden acting uneasy in the airship, Kiara checks on him, but he just explains to her that he's a bit scared being so high, to which she finds so cute, and it amuses her, making her laugh. Meanwhile, the 4 spies also boarded the airship, and they're stunned seeing Kiara laugh. On the other hand, Joseph can't understand his feelings seeing Kiara laugh with Aiden. Looks like our Joseph is jealous. We are too. Reina then makes a plan with them that at the upcoming gathering, they will make Kiara see Aiden's true colors. When Kiara arrives home, she ponders on the thought that she will go to the gathering alone. Just then, Joseph welcomes her arrival and nervously asks her if she will go to the gathering with him. Kiara's mood instantly brightens. She then grabs Joseph's hands and confirms what she just heard from him, to which he answers that he is sure about it. Kiara then observes that Joseph's face is getting redder and redder, and that's when she realizes that she's holding his hand, so she releases it. Blushing, Joseph is so cute. In the house, Kiara and Zeke are having tea and talking about her date with Aiden. When asked about what she likes about Aiden, she just keeps on praising his handsome appearance. She just fell for his looks, like a typical innocent young lady. Frustrated, Aiden visits the traffic management offices to inquire about the airship's rental, but the clerk refuses to disclose the information, adding to his annoyance. The idea of Kiara's potential connection to the Imperial family troubles him deeply, especially as he reflects on their past experiences. Fearing the implications, Aiden finds himself praying and hoping never to encounter her again. The next day, Duke Parvis receives a bill for the airship rental, initially thinking it was a mistake. However, his butler Robert reveals that Lady Kiara rented the airship and spent time with a man after lunch, suggesting she has taken a liking to him. Shocked, the Duke ponders if this newfound behavior is due to the man Kiara is seeing, prompting him to visit her room to ask directly. Inside Kiara's room, her servants are admiring her gown when they hear a knock on the door, and to their surprise, it's the Duke who stands outside. It's really a surprise since it's usually Kiara that goes to him. Well, the tables have turned. The Duke directly asks Kiara about the airship bill and brings up the topic of the man he heard she's seeing, suspecting it as the reason for her changed behavior. Kiara blushes but clarifies that she's not in the kind of relationship he presumes. After the awkward moment passes, she promises to be cautious with expenses in the future. But the Duke says that's not what he wants to discuss. As he struggles to find the right words, Kiara fears he might use the situation to prevent her from attending the party. She tries to excuse herself, but he stops her and is on the verge of asking something important when he decides to just wish her well, and leaves the room, leaving Kiara puzzled about what he truly intended to say. What is it that you're really trying to convey to your daughter, our dear Duke? The day for the gathering has come, and Kiara is dressed in her blue gown. When Joseph sees her, he becomes mesmerized and speechless. He showers her with compliments, making her blush, and then offers his hand as they should be going. They make a lovely pair to look at. As Kiara and Joseph arrive at the gathering, everyone, including the hosts Marquis and Marquess Franche, is surprised. They grace each other's presence, and when Joseph observes that Kiara seems to panic talking with the hosts, he quickly makes an excuse to get her out of the situation. After Joseph checks on Kiara, he asks if she would like to step outside, but she answers that she'll just sit on one of the couches and have something to eat. So Joseph offers to bring her food and leaves her for a while. We really need a Joseph in our lives. As Kiara settles herself on the couch, she observes some ladies nearby having fun talking to each other, and it makes her want to join their conversation too. Suddenly, one of the ladies sees her. The ladies assume that they are disturbing Kiara's peace, so they apologize and go on their way, leaving Kiara alone. Poor Kiara. She just wants to socialize too. Suddenly, a servant approaches Kiara and tells her that the Marquis of Edinburgh, her maternal grandfather, requests her presence. She meets her grandfather at the balcony, and after exchanging greetings, she asks him about the other wife of his father, Rowena Vaneberg, shocking the Marquis. Kiara asks her grandfather if Rowena was indeed sent away from the capital because she was infertile, to which he confirms. Observing her grandpa's reaction, she concludes that he's hiding some information from her. But she recalls the moments before her execution from the past when her grandpa defended her, so she chooses to believe what he tells her. After talking about Rowena, Kiara requests the Marquis to prepare a hiding place far from the capital for her. When her grandpa asks why she would need a hiding place, she answers that she'll tell him when he'll tell her the truth too. Nice bargain, Kiara. As Kiara is about to exit the balcony, she ponders that the hiding place will be where she'll flee to once Cassette appears, and if the same thing will happen in the past when she'll be imprisoned before she'll be executed. She's gonna be really prepared this time. Suddenly, she hears a familiar voice. On the other hand, Joseph, Arthur, and Raina are looking for Kiara so that they can let her see Aiden together with another woman. As they arrive outside looking for her, they see her jump from the balcony. Kiara witnesses Aiden with a woman behind the bushes, and she then confronts him. Oh, this is going to be so interesting. With her scary aura, Kiara grabs and tosses Aiden to the ground and is about to hit him when Raina and Arthur restrain her. Oh, please, don't restrain her. The guy needs a good amount of beating for real. He's a literal red. On the other hand, when Aiden hears Arthur addressing Kiara as Duchess, he realizes that the one he is facing is none other than the daughter of the spirit user family, Kiara Parvis. Even though the realization has hit him, he decides to play innocent and introduces the woman he's with as his partner. He then adds that the moment he shared with Kiara at the restaurant was just a meal they happened to share. Just how shameless this man is. After hearing Aiden explain and defend himself, Kiara snaps and hits him until he lies down on the ground unconscious. That's what you deserve, you piece of trash. She then leaves him on the ground and walks away, and when Joseph follows her, she says that she left her shoe on the balcony, so Arthur and Raina run to get it. Joseph checks on Kiara and asks if she wants to go home, but she refuses to and explains that she will only return home once she fully enjoys the night. She continues that she will not let some awful guy ruin her day. That's our girl. Don't let any man hinder you from being happy, ladies. Just as she wants to lash out her anger at Aiden more, Raina and Arthur arrive, bringing her shoe. Joseph then kneels in front of Kiara and puts the shoe on her foot and comforts her. After securing the shoe, he offers his hand to her and invites her to dance with him. Joseph is the standard. As Joseph and Kiara begin dancing, she observes her partner's face closely and thinks that he is so handsome. She then stares at him so intensely that it makes him blush and stiffen. That's right, Kiara. Don't go looking for a man somewhere else. The man is right in front of you. In the morning, a girl named Daphne Shore visits Kiara's house and reveals herself to be the daughter of Viscountess Shore, who had previously visited. Daphne explains her role in assisting with Zeke's upcoming birthday celebration. As they discuss the preparations, Daphne notices Kiara's somber mood and inquires about it. Kiara opens up to Daphne, sharing her struggle with socializing and making friends. Daphne suggests attending a salon party as a way to ease into social gatherings and invites Kiara to accompany her to a party hosted by the princess. Kiara gladly accepts the invitation. Feeling unsure about conversation topics, Kiara confesses her concern to Daphne. Undeterred, Daphne offers help by sharing the current trends, revealing she had done the same for her brother, which impresses Kiara with her knowledge. Suddenly, Kiara remembers Daphne's brother, who Viscountess Shore had told her about. Kiara then wonders if she will be able to meet him soon, as she wants to ask him about time reversal magic. This magician guy is surely piquing my interest. I wonder what he looks like. In the Imperial Palace, the princess is surprised upon hearing that Kiara will be attending her salon party. I hope the princess is nice. The Imperial Prince Mikhail d'Arc and his sister, Princess Arabella d'Arc, discuss Kiara's sudden acceptance of the invitation for the party the princess will be hosting. Arabella is annoyed, knowing that Kiara will attend her party, but Mikhail tells her that Kiara must have her reasons for her sudden interest in attending social gatherings, and that the Parvis house is something they should watch out for. Oh, never mind. Arabella explains her displeasure regarding Kiara as she recalls her encounter with Kiara once at a banquet, where she just gets ignored by Kiara and feels belittled. Insecure much? So Mikhail calms her and asks her to think about it politically and find out Kiara's real intention. Given no choice, the princess agrees to give it a shot in approaching Kiara, despite knowing that she's always been ignored by her. Well, don't worry, princess. Kiara is a changed lady already. In the Parvis house, Robert delivers a report to Duke Parvis about Kiara's whereabouts. The report contains Kiara's meeting with her grandfather and Kiara breaking up with Aiden. Wait. Breaking up? They never were together! Did we miss a few chapters or something? Robert is so advanced. Robert then tells the Duke about Kiara accepting the invitation to the party at the Imperial Palace. Hearing such news shocks Duke Parvis, so he orders Robert to call Kiara into his office. Our girl keeps on surprising us, doesn't she, Ludwig? Outside the house, Kiara thinks about her situation and her progress in investigating magic and spirits. She then remembers her great-aunt, Johanna Parvis, being the only existing spirit user. Kiara ponders about visiting her aunt, but she hesitates as she needs to go through Duke Parvis if she wants to meet her. Suddenly, Robert appears and tells her that the Duke is requesting her presence. As Kiara arrives at her father's office, it surprises her since he prepared desserts and drinks for their talk. Wow, the Duke is showing his affection in other ways. He then starts their conversation by asking about her quest for looking for a good husband. Kiara answers that she hasn't asked someone about marriage yet, but adds that she will soon succeed. The Duke then replies that she can do as she pleases. Wow, character development. Kiara then brings up the topic about her aunt and wishes to see her, to which Duke Parvis agrees. After stating her intentions and meeting her aunt to the Duke, she excuses herself, leaving him alone in the room. As Kiara exits the room, she ponders about the Duke's expressions during their conversation, and then her mind wanders about what could it be that her grandfather is hiding from her, and she thinks that it could be something important to solve her dilemma. What could it be that her grandpa is hiding? The salon party is buzzing in excitement. The Lady Parvis is attending, and it is unlike her to come to any social events at all. Our girl Kiara is the talk of the town once again. The princess is beyond uncomfortable that someone who has been rude to her is coming to the opening of her salon, while the other guests are anxious to have to deal with the atmosphere that she brings. When she arrives with Lady Daphne, she politely greets the princess. Kiara's attempt to make friends will now begin. "You can do it, girl. We can only hope that she will find true friends." Later on, they are all seated and enjoying themselves. The princess then introduces the special guest for her party, which is the famous musician, Mr. Joshua White. The ladies start swooning almost instantly when they catch a glimpse of him. These girls are true fangirls indeed. Like us. Meanwhile, Daphne has to give Kiara a quick lesson so she can keep up. Kiara is forced into the spotlight when the princess asks her to request a song from Mr. White. She grips the teacup harder as she frantically forms a response. Good thing the dutiful Daphne has given her pointers about him beforehand, even mentioning his famous song, Wolfgang Sunset. She composes herself and requests the song casually. Great save, Kiara. For a while, she is relieved that the conversation is flowing seamlessly. After the party, Kiara goes to the princess to bid her farewell, and the princess graciously asks her to visit again. As she is leaving, she accidentally drops a piece of paper. Naturally, the princess's maid picks it up for her, and what she sees shocks her. Written on the paper are all the latest trends among the young ladies, even information about Joshua White. Kiara instantly rushes back, embarrassed beyond belief. Kiara and the princess find themselves in an awkward conversation after the discovery of Kiara's social cheat sheet. Kiara explains that she worries about keeping up with the conversation, which surprises the princess, who can't believe a noble lady doesn't know how to converse with others. Even more astonished, the princess learns that Kiara attended the party with the intention of making friends. Kiara confesses her desire to join the princess and her friends in social events, but was always afraid of ruining the atmosphere with her presence. Making friends is really hard, Kiara, especially if you're an introvert. The princess can't believe her ears and slams her hands on the table in sheer disbelief. She exclaims that she had always glared at them, but Kiara reveals that it's just her natural expression. As Kiara leaves, the princess realizes she had misinterpreted Lady Parvis all along and had been making something out of nothing. That is why we should never judge anyone quickly, princess. As Kiara leaves the palace, Daphne awaits her and eagerly asks about her encounter with the princess, relieved to hear it went well. However, Daphne expresses her outrage at not being informed about Kiara's plans to find a husband. She scolds Kiara for not confiding in her and then presents an invitation, revealing that she has been sending them out and making sure to invite numerous handsome young men. Daphne is so determined to play matchmaker. An ultimate wingwoman indeed. She is so sure that Kiara will find her destined love soon. Her excitement is practically radiating off of her that Kiara doesn't want to break her enthusiasm. She agrees to attend despite her initial reluctance. We can't blame Daphne, we're excited too! When it is time for the Shore's family party, everyone is buzzing about Kiara's presence once again, especially since it has recently been circulating that she is looking for a husband. Kiara has once again asked Sir Joseph to join her as her partner in the party. And boy, did they look dashing together! Sir Joseph is definitely rocking that uniform. Kiara, believe me, you do not need to find a husband. He's right beside you. Daphne is quick to greet her once they arrive. She is so enthusiastic to aid Kiara in her quest for true love, going out of her way to invite the most outstanding-looking men out there. She most certainly knows how to do an assignment. It must be great to have a friend and such an efficient wingwoman. When Daphne leaves to greet her other guests, Sir Joseph says that Kiara is quite close to her, and Kiara shyly replies that they are friends. Go, girl! You're making such progress! You even have a friend now, and a good one at that. All of a sudden, she locks eyes with the startled princess. Her Highness certainly did not expect her to attend. Kiara and Sir Joseph greet the princess in the customary manner, and Kiara's attempt at a friendly smile startles the princess, making her even scarier. Out of politeness, the princess offers to introduce Kiara to her friends, but she is dismayed when Kiara accepts. As Kiara talks to the other ladies, she is taken aback when someone speaks close to her ear from behind, telling her that she should have gone to him first when she returned. Turning her head, she recognizes him as the man who performed a spell after her death in her past life. The man identifies her as a regressor, stating that he has finally found her. What could this mean? Upon realizing the person in front of her, she's overwhelmed by a rush of memories. She stumbles, and Sir Joseph quickly catches her, demanding better manners in front of Lady Parvis. Again, Joseph is such a man. The incredibly handsome man explains he has something to tell her. Kiara decides to have a brief talk with him while Sir Joseph waits. They find privacy in the lounge, and after a moment of hesitation, Kiara asks how he knows she's a regressor from the past. The man reveals that he sent her back, and she's the only one retaining her memories, marked by a spell on her head. Learning all this surprises Kiara, especially knowing that even the caster himself lacks knowledge of their past life, as time reversal is an uncomfortable type of magic, used as a last resort. He then asks about her last memory of the past. When she solemnly reveals receiving the death penalty, his smugness disappears, replaced by visible concern for the gravity of the situation. He explains that as a rare time magician, he's likely the only one who can alter the flow of time. The spell involves two people, the caster and another person. The flaw is that only the other person can decide whose memory will be restored, and they usually choose themselves. Kiara realizes that since she didn't cast the spell with him, there must have been another person present, and that person chose to retain her memories. The question is, who is that person? Things are getting increasingly complicated. After their serious conversation, the magician introduces himself as Erez Shore, a magician in the Magic Tower. She also finds out that Erez is Daphne's older brother, noting how he is different and less cautious than his sister. She takes her leave since a certain someone is waiting for her outside. He instantly assumes that it's probably the man with a vicious gaze. He may be vicious, but he is nothing short than adorable. Don't worry, Erez, you're quite handsome yourself. Kiara explains that one should not leave one's partner for long. Kiara goes to Sir Joseph apologizing for making him wait. He questions her about Erez and why he called her a regressor. She once again laments about the magician's lack of discretion. Good thing Joseph takes in her excuses even though he knows that she's hiding something. Can we take a second to appreciate this man's beauty? He's angelic. 2 days later, there is an uproar when the news that Lady Parvis has apparently chosen a lover, and that it is no other than Erez Shore. The issue has been plastered in every tabloid there is, and Kiara couldn't be more satisfied that things are going smoothly. The Grand Duke's mood, on the other hand, is even more melancholy than usual. What's wrong, Papa Parvis? Why aren't your usual stoic self? He is in the sitting area while Kiara is getting ready for her trip to visit her great-aunt. Her brother Zeke is there as well, and he can't help but ask for assurance that his sister isn't really planning to get married. Ah, what a cutie! If only all siblings were as adorable as him. The maids and her little brother are outside to see her off as she begins her journey to her great-aunt. She needs to get more clues from this spirit before Cassette arrives. Upon arriving at her great-aunt's estate, Johanna Parvis warmly greets Kiara. Settling in the sitting room, Kiara asks if it's possible for a normal person to be a spirit user. Johanna, not one for studying, can't answer with certainty, but she shares personal and research records of their ancestors who were spirit users. Kiara feels hopeful, anticipating more clues. In her room, Kiara delves into the records. The research contains familiar knowledge, but it's the personal accounts that catch her attention. She reads about two sisters where the younger one manifested her power on time, while the other one grew depressed waiting. The eldest sister's despair ends when the younger one tries something called resonance, touching her sister for the first time. This contact awakens the older sister's ability to see spirits. She had possessed the power all along, and the point of contact with her sister allowed it to surface. Could this be the answer as to why Cassette managed to see the spirits first? Or did she fake it? What do you guys think? The sisters formulated a hypothesis. The younger one believed that her powers could awaken her sister's abilities by sharing spirit energy. They named this phenomenon resonance, a temporary manifestation of dormant powers unique to Parvis sisters. As Kiara reads the journal with tears in her eyes, she feels a sense of relief. In her past life, she had doubted herself in Cassette's presence, but now she knows her ability to see spirits was dormant all along. You've been through a lot, our dear Kiara. Most significantly, she realizes that she could see the spirits through resonance because Cassette touched her, confirming their sisterhood. Oh no, nobody wants to be sisters with such a The day of Zeke's birthday banquet arrives, and Kiara feels the pressure of time running out. As she gets ready for the event, she regrets not telling her great-aunt about resonance. However, she realizes that there's no certainty it will lead to an awakening, and her aunt will likely support Cassette as well when the time comes. Kiara reminds herself not to be impatient and that they both still need to wait for the goddess. That's right, let's not lose hope, Kiara. At the banquet, as people from notable houses introduce themselves and greet the young lord, an unexpected figure enters the hall, causing murmurs of disbelief from the crowd. The man, Count Isaac Weinberg, has been a recluse for a long time and is the brother of the Grand Duke's previous wife. Kiara looks at the woman with him and recognizes Cassette at last. Cassette greets them, and rather than acting cold like in her previous life, Kiara smiles at her warmly and greets her in return. The girl declares how happy she is that she is now reunited with her family after many years. Zeke is the one to react negatively, stating how nonsensical her claim is. He even calls Sir Arthur to throw them out. Before the knight can touch her, Cassette protests, insisting that she is the Grand Duke's flesh and blood. At that moment, the Grand Duke himself enters and the girl greets him. She even calls him father. His Excellency is naturally taken aback when the girl declares herself his daughter. Meanwhile, Kiara's suspicion of her grows. How can someone who supposedly grew up as a commoner be able to handle the heavy gaze of many nobles? She doubts that she grew up not knowing her identity. The Grand Duke asks if Cassette can prove her claim. Hearing this, Kiara is sure that nothing has changed, not even the words that her father is about to say. She has already experienced this before, so getting hurt by her father's lack of care is just foolish to her. You poor girl. I can only imagine how much pain she had gone through with the way her father had treated her. But she is wrong. The Grand Duke suddenly makes Cassette repeat the words she said as a greeting to him. Upon hearing it again, his shock is palpable on his face. After a moment of chaos between the Count and their grandfather, the Grand Duke announces that they are gathered there for his son's birthday, and not to mention the topic all throughout the celebration. Kiara doesn't understand why things have changed. Is it possible that her father remembers too? This is getting better and better. Zeke is seething that Weinbergs used his birthday to announce such an issue. He is hostile with them, which is understandable. Kiara has to encourage him to lighten up and not ruin his special day. Moments later, Kiara is standing at the edge of the crowd when someone calls for her attention. It's Arez, and my gosh, is he dashing as ever. We love that suit, don't we, guys? She instantly threatens him to not say anything, otherwise she'll hit him. She is definitely not in the mood. You better not provoke her, Arez. Arez observes how weird the atmosphere is, so Kiara tells him about Cassette. The moment he sees her, he is dramatically startled. She instantly asks him if he knows her, but he tells her that he merely finds her unusual. Kiara then tells him that she claims to be the Duke's real daughter and that she would probably accuse her of being a fake. Arez tells her to be wary of her since he feels something sinister going on with her. She assures him that even without his warning, she'll definitely be careful. I would be too. Have you seen how eerily glowy she is? Very suspicious. Arez observes her clench her fists around the wine glass as she seethes in anger about how that girl who dares to take her place. Our girl is ready to fight tooth and nail. Woohoo! Rumors about Cassette have begun spreading like wildfire in their estate, and all Kiara can do is ignore it. She is making her way to the Grand Duke's office when Rose asks her if she's all right. She answers with so much conviction that she trusts her mother not to have committed infidelity. Meanwhile, the Grand Duke is thinking about how Cassette's eerie voice resembles the one in his dreams. When Kiara arrives, he makes her take a seat. Kiara is so sure that he has finally made a decision, which is the reason for summoning her. However, she is beyond surprised when he asks for her opinion in the matter. When had he ever asked for her thoughts? Is the Grand Duke finally stepping up as a father, or are we getting our hopes up? You better do something, Papa Parvis. She decides to be honest with him and states it is not a pleasant feeling when all sorts of rumors about her are spreading. Before she continues answering him, she thinks about how she needs to keep an eye on Cassette if she is to be an unavoidable enemy. She then declares that she trusts her mother and that she will not object to his decision. However, hearing his uncharacteristic regard for her opinion, Kiara can't help but wonder why her father is being considerate of her. Hey, everyone can change, right? Let's hope for the best. When she exits her father's office, Kiara is instantly met by her brother, who is desperate for information. When she tells him that the Grand Duke has decided to take the girl in, Zeke visibly deflates. Kiara assures him that she really is okay. She knows that her mother is kind and honest. She would never have committed adultery. Zeke is still angry for his sister, so he is determined to make Cassette feel as unwelcome as possible. Oh, how sweet. Kiara takes his hand and asks him if he trusts her. When he expressed his affirmation, she told him that they should treat Cassette as a guest. Kiara notes that 3 of her night friends, including Sir Joseph, are peeking in the corner. She tells them to come out, and she assures them as well that she is all right. The adorable Sir Joseph becomes upset for her and tells her to not be too distressed, for the truth will be revealed one day. That is so right. Even with all that's happening, her heart is lighter when she is surrounded by people who care for her. You deserve these types of people around you, Kiara. When it is the day for Cassette's arrival, she determinedly stands outside to meet her, even though her servants tell her she doesn't have to do it. Kiara greets Cassette warmly and even welcomes her to the family. Cassette extends her hand for a handshake as she expresses her hope for them to get along. Gathering all her conviction, Kiara takes her hand and tells her that she hopes for the same. We hope this time Kiara gets to manifest her powers first and prove herself the real one. It was a time before Kiara's regression. Sir Joseph observed how sensitive she had been, probably all because of the girl that Count Weinberg had brought. He is saddened about how fast people change their mind about his lady, even though she had meticulously done her duty for the past few years. He can only wonder if she is okay. How dreamy can a person be? He is so thoughtful. We're literally having heart eyes right now. After a rigorous training session with the other knights, he pondered how House Weinberg attempted to erase Kiara's existence, even pressuring her to give up her position as captain. Lost in thought, he heard someone still training and went to investigate, finding Kiara practicing with her sword. Accidentally injuring herself, he saw a pain in her eyes that went beyond the physical wound. Hurrying to check on her, he expressed concern, but she took it as pity and berated him, asserting her strength and independence, declaring she didn't need anyone's help. No one's an island, Kiara! Take all the help that you need. When she asked him to be her partner in a sword warm-up, he spoke up, reminding her that he was her knight and served the strongest. And again, he's also your knight in shining handsomeness. He couldn't see her as weak. His words brought a genuine smile to her face as she challenged him to grab his swords, asserting that a knight should show sincerity through their skill. A challenge he eagerly accepted. Everything shifted once again when he learned that Lady Cassette had managed to awaken the power of the spirit. Oh no, not again! Lady Kiara had not eaten for days, not even drinking a sip of water. He tried to get her out of her stupor, so she wouldn't have to break down. He even begged her desperately to hang in there, but to no avail, she barely responded. The lady is then sentenced to death. Poor Kiara, she tried to do everything to change her fate. Her younger brother was determined to reason with his father as he marched to his office with Sir Joseph hot at his heels. He asked the young lord to stop, but Zeke expressed his anger about the situation, especially about how his sister had been treated. Sir Joseph made him understand that he needed to exercise caution since people were watching them. He told the young master to calm down and promised that he would go to the Grand Duke himself. Zeke agreed, and he went back to his room. Sir Joseph then made his way to the Grand Duke's office where the Grand Duke himself opened the door for him. Continuing with the flashback before Kiara's regression in Joseph's POV, he tried talking to Kiara's father about his decision to execute Kiara. He protested that if they wrongly accused Kiara, the entire empire would suffer the consequence of executing the true priestess. Despite Joseph's objection, the Duke was stern in punishing his own daughter after Cassette proved to possess the Parvis's power in front of the nobility and the imperial family, in fear of the prophecy that a fake lady would bring disaster. He couldn't do anything. After all, he was just a knight sworn to protect Kiara. The Duke, well, was the head of the Empire's shield. Joseph was determined to save Kiara, so he devised a plan to slip out Kiara and Zeke before the execution date. However, on that day, Kiara refused to go with Zeke. Perhaps she did not want to struggle longer. Maybe she gave up on living after witnessing her father willingly give her up. Joseph reflected on how Kiara had endured a lifetime of struggle to achieve greatness and earn her father's approval, all while being trapped by the expectations of her role as the Parvis family's lady. He wished that he comforted her and became someone she could depend on, not just as her knight. But all he could do was reminisce about the last time their swords clashed in training, along with the words he failed to say to Kiara. He could do nothing but linger over the traces of her and pray that she gets another chance to live, free from all the restraints, to live how she truly desired. Gosh, someone find me a man like Joseph! And then, Kiara was executed. After the word of Cosette's arrival in the Parvis's manor spreads, Kiara receives letters from her friends. ZK is amazed that Kiara has made many friends already. Letters from his grandfather, Bella, Daphne, and her servants all express their support towards her. One particular letter stands out as it bursts in a magical light and a hologram of Erez appears. Along with the message is a ring that could defend Kiara if Cosette ever tries to harm her. She wonders if he is truly worried for her and thinks how unpredictable he is. I'm sensing something here. Rose, her servant, notes that the mood in the castle has been unsettling since a wild Cosette appeared. ZK and Rose urge her to be careful with the Pokemon. Cosette has been acting friendly around the servants, obviously scheming something. It's time for Kiara to make her move and start her act. Later, Kiara meets Joseph on her way to the training grounds. Joseph invites Kiara to a swordsmanship training with the knights, but she refuses, saying that she's no longer the captain, and it's Joseph's responsibility to train the knights. She, however, is open to sparring in the future. Before parting ways, Joseph reassures Kiara of his allegiance and that she can always rely on him in times of trouble. Please, Joseph, stop! You're bringing out the fangirl in me! Later, Kiara begins her warming up by practicing her swordsmanship stance. She knows exactly what is going to happen. And then, a familiar scene unfolds. Cosette arrives with a bouquet, wearing a pretentious smile. Kiara commands Cosette to step back as she wields a sword. Cosette praises Kiara for being trained as a knight, but Kiara knows these are just empty words. In response, Kiara asks Cosette to leave, as chatting with her is a waste of energy. Cosette makes the predictable move of pretending she only wants to befriend Kiara. She then realizes this isn't working, and she begins to provoke her. She accuses Kiara of not being the Duke's real daughter and basically says that her mother was unfaithful. In her past life, Kiara would have slashed the blabbering baboon, and perhaps she should, but Kiara has learned her lesson and decides to play along with Cosette's act. She pities Cassette for being brainwashed by the Count of Weinberg into believing she is the Duke's real daughter. Frustrated, Cassette claims that she is the spitting image of the Duke and that everyone will believe she is the real daughter, while Kiara is nothing but a fraud. But this is exactly what Kiara means. Cassette is born with a face that is so easy for the Count to exploit. The servants arrive, worried about Cassette, scolding her for not informing them of her whereabouts. Paula, a servant, apologizes to Kiara, probably for failing to keep Cassette in her place. Before leaving, Kiara innocently reminds Cassette not to do anything that would alarm the servants. In the past, Cassette would have been the one smirking as she left. Now, it's Kiara's turn to smirk. Later that day, while reading a novel in her room, Kiara and Rose spot Cosette speaking with one of Kiara's servants, probably scheming. Emily, one of Kiara's servants, is scanning through a catalog in the courtyard, awing at dresses and jewelry of noble ladies. Cassette approaches her and uses the opportunity to win her over. She tries to sweet-talk Emily about how cutesy and demure the dresses in the catalog are. Emily thinks how lucky Cassette is on becoming a noble lady overnight. Suddenly, Cassette invites Emily to visit a boutique with her. Emily has only ever seen beautiful dresses in catalogs since Kiara only calls designers into the castle and never visits boutiques. Emily starts imagining how she would look in noble dresses and thinks of having a rags to riches story like Cassette. But it strikes Emily that she'll have to ask Kiara's permission. A few moments later, Emily asks Kiara for approval to go with Cassette. She reassures Kiara that she does not have ulterior motives in going with Cassette. She only wants to experience going to a boutique. To her surprise, Kiara agrees, as if there's no problem with it at all. Before Emily leaves, Kiara asks her to keep their conversation a secret, even from Rose, and wishes that she'll have a good time. When Emily walks out of Kiara's room, she runs into Rose, who hears her say she got permission. Rose questions Emily's motives for following Cassette to a boutique. She sees Emily wearing a ruby bracelet before the latter runs off. Rose believes that Emily is betraying Kiara for jewelry that Cassette bribed her with. Unbeknownst to her, Cassette is eavesdropping and satisfyingly grinning, feeling her success in messing with Kiara's servants. At lunchtime, while the rest of the Parvises are eating quietly, Cassette cannot just stop yapping about how excellent the foods are. Girl, can't you read the room? Out of the blue, Cassette asks her father if she could meet her great aunt. As usual, the nonchalant Duke agrees, but warns Cassette not to bother the lady as she is not in good health. On that cue, Kiara offers to go with her. Kiara justifies that it will be better that she comes to introduce her great-aunt and Cosette to each other, so they will not be uncomfortable. Kiara recalls that in her past life, Cosette visited the great-aunt alone, and she suspects that she had other intentions of visiting her great-aunt. This time, she will watch Cosette's moves closely. Digressing the topic, Kiara informs Cosette that none of the servants volunteered to serve her, so she decides that they will take turns serving her. Cosette questions why Kiara is deciding on that matter. She intently looks at the Duke, expecting him to overrule Kiara, but the Duke simply takes his leave. Kiara promises to send a maid and encourages Cassette to tell her of any inconvenience she experiences, though she doubts Cassette would have any concerns in the castle compared to her previous dwelling. Frustrated by her defeat, Cosette leaves the dining hall. Zike praised Kiara for standing her ground. Kiara feels delighted to watch the bitterness on Cosette's face. Kiara and Cosette finally visit their great-aunt. Cosette is back to her usual innocent act, pretentiously admiring Lady Johanna's, Kiara's great-aunt's, castle. Lady Johanna welcomes the two at her gates. While Kiara respectfully greets her aunt, Cosette casually introduces herself with an overly energetic tone. Like one of those pick-me girls. The lady cannot help but see the resemblance between Cassette and her nephew, the Duke. However, she does not mention a thing and continues welcoming her guests. As they settle themselves in Lady Johanna's estate, Cassette begins bothering Kiara with her nonsensical questions. Kiara knows better than to pay attention to Cosette's antics until Cassette asks about the elemental crystal of Beatrix. The elemental crystal is supposed to hold the power of the water goddess, Beatrix. Cassette tells Kiara that it is said one can use the elemental power simply by possessing the crystal. Kiara warns Cassette of ever speaking about this knowledge in public. If House Parvis kept this information, then there must be a good reason why it has never been revealed. The annoying blonde continues asking Kiara if she has touched it and accuses her of planning to use the crystal. Sternly, Kiara shuts down Cassette by calling out how wasteful she was with her time. Kiara suggests to Cassette to spend it studying table manners and noble etiquette so as not to embarrass Lady Johanna. Finally, she said it! As Kiara leaves, Emily arrives and Cassette immediately runs towards her and hugs her. With crocodile tears, she tells Emily that she only wishes to make friends with Kiara, but deep inside, she is praying for Kiara's morale to finally break. Back in her room, Kiara wonders what Cassette is really up to for visiting Lady Johanna. But whatever the reason is, Kiara is determined to stop Cassette from advancing her plans. Cosette's words keep on replaying in Kiara's mind. Where did Cassette learn about the elemental crystal? Kiara wonders and suspects Cosette's real business for visiting Lady Johanna. Kiara contemplates if Cassette is planning to use the crystal or something else. In the middle of the night, Kiara and Rose approach Lady Johanna's butler to request a bottle of wine from the basement cellar. At first, the butler hesitates to give them the key to the basement, but later agrees to them after Kiara assures her that she'll take responsibility if anything goes wrong. Before going, the butler whispers to Kiara something about the basement. Rose worries that if they make a mistake, it will look bad on Kiara and get her in trouble. However, Kiara assures her that everything will be fine. At that moment, a figure runs behind them. It was Emily. Emily goes to Cassette and reports Kiara's moves and her plan to go down to the basement by herself to get wine, but they know Kiara does not enjoy drinking. Cassette suspects that a secret passage is in the basement connecting to the elemental crystal, and Kiara will use it to sneak down to get the crystal. She hurriedly uses this opportunity to catch Kiara red-handed and alerts the whole castle that an intruder is in the basement. It turns out that Cassette made up a lie about gaining elemental powers by possessing the elemental crystal, and she believes that Kiara fell directly into her trap. The guards and everyone in the castle surround the entrance to the basement, waiting for the intruder to come out. Cassette thinks that she succeeded in catching Kiara. However, she realizes the mess she has made when it is Rose who steps out of the basement. Frustrated that things didn't go her way, Cassette starts pressuring Rose to reveal where Kiara is hiding and claims that Kiara went down to take the crystal. Amid the commotion, Lady Johanna arrives at the scene, demanding an explanation of the ruckus. Cassette insists that Rose was trying to steal the elemental crystal of Beatrix for Kiara. Right then, Kiara arrives coming down the stairs from her room. Kiara tells Cassette that she has no reason to approach the crystal, and if she did, she could simply ask her great-aunt to allow her. Cassette is lost for words. She planned to get Kiara caught using the crystal to forcibly use elemental powers and be suspected of the fake daughter. Kiara adds that she only asked Rose to get a bottle of wine from the cellar. To this, Cassette protests that Kiara never enjoyed drinking enough for her to steal the key to the basement. Kiara explains that she didn't steal the key. She simply took it after arranging it in advance with the butler, which the butler backs up. And the whisper? It was the butler recommending the best wine in the cellar. Cassette realizes that she was not informed that the butler and Kiara had prior arrangements. Emily betrayed her. Emily was never her ally. Kiara accuses Cassette of prying into her background. For how else would she know her drinking habit when they haven't known each other long enough? The other maids testify that Cassette has been asking around about Kiara. Lady Johanna finally speaks and calls Cassette's actions ridiculous after she alarmed the whole castle for nothing. After expressing her disappointment, Lady Johanna urges everyone to go back to their bed. On their way back, Kiara commends Emily for doing a good job. Emily fills in Rose with what happened since Rose thought Emily betrayed Kiara for a bracelet. Previously, Emily befriended Cassette to know her motives. Immediately after Cassette approached her, Emily reported to Kiara what happened, including Cassette's offer to visit a boutique. It turns out that Kiara already knew that Cassette would approach Emily. She agreed for Emily to go with Cassette to act as her servant to spy on her. It is the reason why they kept it a secret from Rose. And the bracelet? It was from Kiara, not Cassette. As the dust settles, Lady Johanna and Kiara talk about the incident. They suspect that it was Count Weinberg who told Cassette about the existence of the elemental crystal. Kiara claims that Cassette simply heard that she was going down to the basement and immediately thought that Kiara was looking for the crystal, which means that Cassette had the same intention of looking for the crystal. Lady Johanna confirms that the elemental crystal of Beatrix is merely an object that proves the existence of the bond with the elementals. Simply touching it doesn't give someone the elemental powers. Kiara remembers that in her past life, Cassette visited Lady Johanna alone, so framing Kiara wasn't her original plan. If Cassette came to find the crystal, it must not be because it would help manifest her powers. It strikes Kiara. What if Cassette planned to destroy the crystal, breaking the bond with Beatrix? Lady Johanna reveals that she looked into Cassette's background and found nothing as if it was purposely wiped clean. She then warns Kiara to be wary of Cassette. After visiting Lady Johanna, Kiara rendezvous with Erez at a restaurant. Kiara shares with Erez the events at Lady Johanna's castle. Erez thinks that now Lady Johanna is disappointed with Cassette, Kiara will definitely get her support in strengthening her claim. As for Cassette, Erez thinks that she must have gone silent after the incident. However, Kiara reveals that House Weinberg sent a letter demanding Kiara to denounce any position she has because her blood relationship with House Parvis hasn't been confirmed yet. In her previous life, Kiara immediately resigned from her position as the captain of the Knights to show that she didn't need any position to belong to House Parvis. She did it to look cool, but it didn't work out for her back then. Now that she feels closer to the Knights of Parvis, aka Joseph, she decides to keep her position. Erez mentions the ring that he gave her with the letter, but Kiara is keeping it in a box instead of wearing it since it was loose on her finger. He reaches for Kiara's fingers and fondles them as if ascertaining her ring size. Kiara is surprised by this bold move and turns red. How flirty. Erez explains that for the defensive power of the ring to work, it must be in contact with Kiara's body. If Cassette harms Kiara in a certain way, Erez didn't explain how, he would be instantly teleported to Kiara. Kiara requests to have it as earrings instead of a ring since it's uncomfortable for her to practice swordsmanship. Erez gets close to her face, teasing the lady and turning her red again. Back in the Parvis' manor, Cassette approaches Joseph and requests to speak with him alone. Cassette leads Joseph to the back garden. Arthur and Reyna notice this and wonder what Cassette is planning to do. Kiara arrives looking for Joseph. She heads to the garden after Arthur and Reyna tell her that Cassette requested to talk with Joseph alone. On her way, Kiara thinks Cassette is trying to trick Joseph. I'm sensing jealousy. Kiara overhears Cassette trying to persuade Joseph to take his position as the captain of the Parvis Knights. Cassette tells him that he is more worthy than a fake, implying Kiara to take the position. She also accuses Joseph of always wanting to surpass Kiara. Joseph answers that he indeed feels a sense of rivalry with Kiara as a knight and not for some petty, shallow reason. He tells Cassette that he initially thought she was an innocent victim of Count Weinberg's scheme, with a face that can easily be used to claim as a daughter of the Duke. But now that he witnessed Cassette trying to go between him and Kiara, Joseph believes that she's conspiring with Weinberg. Joseph walks out after rejecting Cassette and suggests she take a nap instead of wasting her time. Oof, that burns. Joseph discovers that Kiara heard everything and blushes after remembering the sense of rivalry part, and becomes even more flustered about saying just take a nap to dear Cassette. Kiara wishes that the other knights also think of her worthy as a captain. Joseph reassures her that the knights are on her side and none question her title. He adds that they will, of course, believe someone who's always been with them rather than a stranger who appeared out of nowhere. This statement gives Kiara a new source of courage. Kiara rushes off to meet her father to inform him that she will return to her duties as a captain. The Duke receives a letter from the imperial family that reminds him of the prophecy and demands him to make a decision for the current situation. Besides, House Parvis cannot involve personal emotions for the greater cause. Kiara arrives and immediately informs the Duke that she wants to return as the captain of the Knights and that she will not back down even after House Weinberg demands her to relinquish her position. The Duke promises to send a warning to Weinberg for interfering in Parvis's family affairs. Before Kiara leaves, the Duke asks her why she isn't addressing him as father like she used to. Kiara is surprised by this sudden question. The Duke has never been a father to her. In fact, he was the one who decided Kiara's death after he accepted Cassette as the real Parvis daughter. Kiara answers that she thought the Duke never cared about such trivial matters, since he always put family dignity over family harmony. That hurts. The Duke seems to look affected by Kiara's answer. As Kiara leaves her father, she remembers the face her father made and wonders what it meant. Alone, the Duke contemplates how he carries his duty as the head of House Parvis and as a father. He pursued absolute reason like how his predecessors did, often forgetting to show fondness for his child. He realizes that he has never said warm words or paid attention to his daughter. Expecting Kiara to address him as father is laughable. Kiara can't shake off Duke Parvis's words from last night as she heads to the tea party. The thought of calling him father in private lingers in her mind, stirring a mix of emotions she can't quite name. When she arrives, her chaperone opens the door, and the princess greets her warmly. However, Her Majesty's smile fades slightly when Kiara explains that Cassette isn't feeling well. Though disappointed, the princess encourages Kiara to enjoy herself, reminding her that the tea party is for the younger crowd. Just as Kiara begins to relax, the princess teasingly warns her not to spill the cheating paper, making Kiara blush with embarrassment. It's also kind of sweet how the princess is trying to help Kiara loosen up, even if it's with a bit of teasing. I sure hope their friendship continues. After the princess leaves, Kiara feels out of place until Daphne greets her warmly and invites her to join the other ladies in a card game. Just as they're having fun, Kiara's grandfather arrives unexpectedly. She excuses herself to speak with him privately. In their conversation, Kiara's grandfather inquires if she knows what Weinberg intends to do. Instead of answering, Kiara asks if Weinberg is truly unable to have children. Though reluctant, her grandfather reveals that someone capable of having children actually did, leaving Kiara in shock. Kiara suspects that Cassette is Rowena's child, but her grandfather adamantly denies it, insisting he saw the child was dead with his own eyes. He reveals that Rowena was killed to keep her silent and the fetus died with her. Angry, Kiara demands to know why he killed Rowena. My gosh, this family sure is filled with dark secrets. Her grandfather explains that Rowena is their enemy and tries to justify his actions, urging her to understand and insisting that Zeke must never find out. Kiara, still unsettled, asks if the Duke knew about Rowena's pregnancy, but her grandfather confirms that the Duke had no contact with her. After answering her questions, her grandfather grows suspicious and asks how she knows about Cassette. Kiara explains that she had a foresight dream, which she believes may be a warning from the goddess. Her grandfather asks if things are progressing as in her dream, and she confirms that they are. He holds her hands, assures her that they are in the same boat, and urges her to talk to him if there's anything she needs to discuss. Kiara nods, assures him, and heads back to the tea party. Before she leaves, her grandfather ominously adds that as they live together, they will die together. She doesn't dwell on his words and steps away. Something's definitely off, and it's making me wonder what Kiara's next move will be. At the table, Kiara mentions that her grandfather gets worried about their situation, prompting one of the ladies to remark that she has a kind side for the Marquise of Edinburgh. Feeling uneasy, Kiara tells the princess she needs to leave early, and the princess understands. As Kiara departs, Daphne watches her with concern, wondering if she's truly all right. On her way back to the mansion, Kiara's thoughts revolve around the possibility that her grandfather might have killed Rowena himself. Arriving at the mansion, her butler informs her that she has a guest waiting. In the Duke's room, Erez is questioned by Duke Parvis, who asks if he has a title. Erez replies no, but mentions he is the mage of the Magic Tower and has no intention of taking over the family patriarch. Parvis, glaring at Erez, throws down tabloids about him and Kiara. Look at him acting so fatherly. Little too late if you ask me. But then again, her dad has no right to be this hot. Getting sidetracked again. Anyway, Erez reassures him it's not what it seems and explains that he came to see Kiara as promised. Parvis, angry, questions Erez's frequent visits, but Erez denies any frequent contact with Kiara. The tension in that room is so thick. Before the situation escalates, Kiara arrives, apologizes, and quickly escorts Erez out. Parvis watches them leave, suspecting their relationship is deeper than it appears. Once outside, Erez comments that Kiara's father is intimidating. Kiara responds that her father is cold-hearted and likely views Erez as just his guest. While walking, Kiara chides Erez for not informing her of his visit beforehand instead of going to the Duke's room. He explains that the Duke insists he comes. Ignoring this, Kiara asks if Erez has something to say. He assures her that he wants to check that she isn't troubled by the imposter and presents her with a pair of earrings, which he puts on her. What a bold move! You can't help but wonder, what's his real game here? Kiara is surprised by the gesture. Erez also remarks that she seems to be living well and notes that her father appears to like her, leaving Kiara shocked. Erez remarks that Kiara's father looks like he's about to chase off a son-in-law trying to steal his daughter. Kiara dismisses this as delusional, insisting her father cares more for a rolling stone than for her. As they tease each other, Erez proposes a bet. If she and Cassette are in danger, they'll see which way the Grand Duke runs. If someone loses, the other must fulfill the winner's wish. Kiara ignores the bet and wonders why Erez is laughing so much. She asks if there's a real risk to her and Cassette or if nothing has happened. That's not just a bet, it's playing with fire. Erez assures her she has nothing to worry about, then excuses himself and kisses her hand goodbye. The gesture leaves Kiara awestruck, and she wonders where he learns it. As Erez arrives at his room using his power, he thinks that he already knows why the Duke turned back time. Wait, what? This story is literally blowing my mind! Another day passes, and as Kiara changes with the help of Emily, she asks if anything happened while she was away. Emily explains that Cassette left right after Kiara, saying she would be volunteering in a slum. Kiara commends Emily for keeping her informed. Meanwhile, her butler arrives to announce that Cassette has returned. Kiara goes to Cassette, who is accompanied by a ragged lady. Cassette tells Kiara that if she is spending time idly at the mansion, she should do something meaningful. She also mentions that she's helped someone in need, which she is talking about the ragged lady. As Kiara looks at that ragged lady, she recognizes her as Mina. Regardless of recognizing Mina, Kiara still asks who she is and why Cassette has brought her. Cassette explains that Mina is now an orphan and asks if she can work at the mansion. Initially skeptical about having Mina work for them due to strict conditions, Kiara eventually agrees. She instructs the maid to take care of Mina and teach her the basics of being a maid. A few months later, Cassette is unusually quiet and kind to the servants. Kiara observes that the maids are more comfortable with Cassette now. As Kiara walks through the hallway, she overhears the maids gossiping with Mina. Mina claims to be fine since Cassette is taking care of her. However, some maids give her extra chores because of Kiara's influence. Emily notes that without Kiara, Mina wouldn't be at the mansion. The nerve of Mina to badmouth Kiara, who has given her a chance at a fresh start? How outrageous! The gossip continues with Mina speaking poorly of Kiara, and the maids express their frustration, calling her ungrateful. Mina argues that Kiara doesn't even resemble the Duke. Hearing this, Kiara can't help but shout that Mina should be careful about what she says about her family. The maids are shocked to learn that Kiara has been listening the whole time. Kiara scolds Mina for her ingratitude and suggests that it might be a reason to expel her. Mina stubbornly denies any wrongdoing. Staying calm, Kiara taps Mina's shoulder, making her flinch as if expecting a slap. Kiara reassures her that she won't be kicked out, as the atmosphere in the mansion is good these days. However, she warns Mina to be cautious of her conduct around the Duke. After that, Kiara instructs Emily to accompany Mina and then leaves. On the day of Kiara's reinstatement, the knights congratulate her as the captain and express their excitement about sparring with her. However, Joseph arrives and says he will spar with her first, starting the match while the knights watch with anticipation. After their spar, Joseph commends Kiara for staying the same as before. She responds that he's still tough on her, even now as it's her first time picking up a sword in a long while. Kiara suggests they take a break since her throat is dry, and Joseph offers her some water. Such a gentleman. As she waits for him to return, she reminisces about the sparring ground, reflecting on how little it has changed. She thinks back to how, despite being mistreated, Joseph had always supported and protected her. She realizes that his unwavering support might be due to his role as the family's knight. How naive, Kiara! The man is obviously smitten with you! After a while, Joseph returns, smiling with a bottle of water in his hands. Kiara can't help but keep her gaze on him, still lost in thought. Later, they all gather to celebrate Kiara's reinstatement, raising their drinks in her honor. The knights reminisce about the first time they met Kiara and how she was introduced as their captain. They laugh, recalling how she behaved when she got drunk, leaving Kiara feeling a bit embarrassed. Kiara is at her best and most vulnerable tonight. As the night goes on and the atmosphere grows more festive, Kiara decides to make the moment even more memorable. She grabs her sword, its blade gleaming under the lights, and with a swift, graceful motion, she slices open the bottle of liquor. The knights cheer, impressed by her skill, and the celebration continues with even more energy. As they continue their celebration, the knights try to lift Kiara's mood since she's feeling down. Kiara also notices Joseph's face turning red from alcohol, which he claims is because of her that he drinks too much. The others, upon hearing his excuses, tease him for always using Kiara as a scapegoat. Embarrassed, he excuses himself for a walk, and she then asks if she can join him. When they are outside, Joseph drapes his coat over Kiara to help keep her warm. Kiara then asks him why he continues to support her, even though she has been distant and cold towards everyone. He replies that it was when he became an official knight and met Parvis for the first time. He sees her beside Parvis, who's exactly like him. He says that he feels Kiara's loneliness and wants to ease her burdens. As time passes, he feels that his heart has developed a deeper connection with her. However, he doesn't continue what he wants to say, leaving Kiara wondering. Then, he suggests they go back inside as the wind is getting colder. Meanwhile, Emily delivers food to Duke Parvis, who questions why she is the one bringing it when she's supposed to serve Kiara. Emily explains that Kiara is out, which leaves Duke Parvis to assume she's with Erez. Emily clarifies that Kiara is at the celebration for the return of the knights, causing Duke Parvis's mood to shift immediately. After Emily leaves, Parvis reads a letter from his aunt about her deteriorating health and the sacrifice she's willing to offer to the goddess. In the letter, her aunt mentions that she wants Kiara to take her place in the ritual since Kiara is well versed in it. Wow, Kiara wasn't just involved in the ritual, she was meant to lead. She also notes that the shrine considers it may be impossible to choose just one person, as Cassette is also capable of performing the ritual. The aunt asks for Parvis's opinion on the matter. She explains that, given the long-standing tradition of priests offering sacrifices to the goddess, there may be complications with the ritual in the future, regardless of the reason. When he finished reading the letter, he instructed Robert to tell Kiara and Cassette to return to the office in the morning. Unaware, Mina had overheard the conversation between him and Robert. Immediately, Mina rushed to inform Cassette about the ritual. Cassette, grateful for Mina's loyalty, thanked her and assured her that she would secure a position for Mina's brother as soon as her own position was solidified. In response, Mina vowed to serve Cassette faithfully for as long as she lived. "You're not even the one who was chosen by your aunt." Cassette smiled approvingly and said they needed to perform well at the shrine to ensure everything would proceed smoothly. The morning arrives, and Kiara is still preoccupied with what happened to Joseph the night before. She snaps back to reality when Cassette calls her, noting that they rarely see each other. Cassette then asks if Kiara also visits their father to discuss the temple work, but Kiara doesn't respond. Kiara remembers that in the past, she wasn't allowed into their father's room because of Cosette's accusations. Determined not to let Cassette win this time, Kiara arrives first at the door and greets Duke Parvis. When they enter the room, Duke Parvis informs them that their aunt has sent a message and wants to know their opinions, as only one person can go. Both Kiara and Cassette, confident and eager, openly express their desire to go. A squabble begins over who should be chosen. Kiara argues that she should go because she has been involved with the temple alongside their aunt and grandmother. Cassette, however, insists that she deserves the chance. And just like that, the gloves are off. You can almost hear the sparks flying between them. Duke Parvis is unsure about whom to choose. Just as he is about to explain their aunt's message, Cassette quickly grabs Kiara and suggests that they both go. Duke Parvis asks Kiara for her opinion. Afraid of losing the opportunity to Cassette, Kiara hesitates but eventually agrees. Duke Parvis decides that both Kiara and Cassette will go to the temple together. After this decision, they leave the Duke's room. On the day of departure to the temple, Kiara has no choice but to ride in the wagon with Cassette. Cassette happily asks about Kiara's experience in the inner hall at the temple and says she's looking forward to it. Kiara responds that she is also excited about it. When they arrive at the temple, the priests greet Kiara and Cassette and offer to help with the rituals. They show them around, discussing the temple's unchanged structures. Kiara reminisces about past visits with her aunt, while Cassette, excited, asks about their schedule. The priest informs them that they have the rest of the day to prepare for tomorrow. Kiara volunteers to handle the holy thing, and Cassette agrees to care for the divine beast. They go to the area where the divine beast and sacred items are kept. Cassette sees a cute fox and learns from the priest that it was appointed by the fortune teller. Kiara recognizes the holy thing and recalls her aunt's teachings. You can feel the tension rising as these two clash in their own ways. The priest assigns them each a prayer room and instructs them to pray and offer sacrifices at the altar until the final day. After 2 days, Rose tells Kiara that Cassette is getting praise from the nuns, which Kiara is aware of. Rose also notes that the divine beast has been roaming without proper care. Kiara decides to check on Cassette and asks Rose to protect the sacred relic. When Kiara arrives, Cassette asks if she's there to help. Kiara says she's just getting some fresh air and inquires about the divine beast. Cassette replies that Mina is taking care of it. Cassette then remarks that caring for the holy thing must be boring since it doesn't move, which Kiara interprets as Cassette making fun of her. Kiara remains calm while addressing Cassette's attitude, pointing out her distraction with the nuns instead of focusing on their purpose. She warns Cassette not to disturb others and then laughs off Cassette's fury, saying they'll meet the next day. Once Kiara leaves, the nuns question Cassette about the confrontation. Cassette claims Kiara is annoyed because she asked for help and contrasts her noble background with her own commoner status, implying Kiara prefers comfort over duty. As the nuns walk away, Cassette plots to make Kiara regret her actions on the final day. Oh, here we go. Just when you think she can't get any worse, she proves she's the ultimate villain. On the last day, Kiara contemplates her ritual preparations. Rose informs her that Cassette is still helping the nuns, but Kiara focuses on the ritual and the sacred relic, which will be thrown into blue fire. The priest confirms Kiara's prayer transcription is done and directs her to the parish for the final ceremony. Before leaving, Kiara hands Rose the key to the sacred relic and instructs her to protect it. After Kiara departs, Rose, intrigued, touches the relic's glass case and begins cleaning. Her attention shifts when she smells smoke. A fire suddenly breaks out, causing the nuns to panic and shout for everyone to evacuate. Rose opens the door to find the nuns running frantically and is instructed to evacuate as well. As she exits, she shouts for Kiara, her concern for her friend mounting. After some time, Rose spots Kiara and rushes over, asking if she's all right. Kiara reassures her that she's fine and explains that the priests have already extinguished the fire using their divine powers. Rose is relieved, but remembers the sacred relic and worries about its safety. Kiara comforts her, saying that the relic cannot be burned, and Rose feels a bit more at ease knowing she's safe. Meanwhile, Mina, seizing the chaos, throws the holy thing to the ground, shattering it. She thinks to herself that Kiara will have no excuse for ruining the ritual. As Mina exits the room, she encounters Sister Helena and quickly scrambles to come up with a plausible alibi. I can't believe she's actually siding with that Cassette. She's clearly up to no good. When Kiara and Rose return to their prayer room, they're greeted by the sight of the broken holy thing. Kiara immediately deduces that someone must have intentionally broken it. Rose tries to take the blame, but Kiara calms her down and starts to think about the consequences if the priest finds out. She instructs Rose to do what she says from then on. After the fire is extinguished, the pretentious Cassette shows up in the temple to proceed with the rite. Meanwhile, Kiara is running a bit late because of the situation with the sacred object. Mina, Cassette's servant, signals to Cassette that she has done her job setting up Kiara. Kiara arrives late and informs him that she has to check on Rose to make sure she's not injured in the fire. They immediately begin the ritual, praying to the goddess. Kiara is not praying for any miracle to happen, but only for Rose to succeed in whatever plan they're executing. After praying, they continue the rites by offering the sacred object to the goddess. Cosette grins, thinking that her plan to sabotage Kiara and take control of the temple will succeed. Kiara gives the high priest the key to open her oratory. But what greets them is a shocking scene. The sacred object is there on the floor, broken. But that's not just it. The fox, the sacred animal, was playing with it. Kiara devised this plan to make it look like Cosette was at fault for breaking this sacred object. After all, it was Cosette's fault. And with Rose's aid, they succeeded in making Cosette taste her own medicine. Kiara accuses Cassette of not looking after the sacred animal, and now it has broken the sacred object. What a perfect comeback! Cassette tries to shift the blame, suggesting someone must have intentionally brought the animal into the room since the door was locked. The high priest investigates and summons Rose, the last person to leave the room. When Rose arrives, she frantically reacts upon seeing the broken sacred object. She recalls that she forgot to lock the door while evacuating. Afterward, she and Kiara return to change robes, ensuring the door was locked when they left. The sacred object was intact at that time. The high priest concludes that the animal entered when the door was left unlocked during the evacuation. Rose pleads for forgiveness, willing to accept any punishment. Nice acting, girl! However, Kiara argues that if Rose is at fault for forgetting to lock the door, the person responsible for the sacred animal is even more to blame. She demands Cosette's servant be summoned. Mina arrives, and the high priest urges her to speak truthfully, reminding her of the temple's sanctity. When questioned about the sacred animal's escape, Mina hesitates and claims she fled Cosette's oratory in panic during the fire. Kiara calls this a bluff, pointing out that Mina couldn't have known about the fire since Cosette's room was too far from the incident. Mina stammers, unable to come up with another excuse. The high priest concludes that Mina failed to properly care for the animal, leading to the destruction of the sacred object. With other nuns and priests criticizing her incompetence, Mina cannot protest further. The penalty for the offense is supposed to be death, but Kiara encourages the priest to be lenient with the punishment since Mina is Cosette's favorite servant. Instead, why not flog her 50 times before throwing her out of the capital? That doesn't sound any better than the death penalty. As Mina is dragged out, she calls for Cosette's help, but Cosette turns away. To push through with the rite, the high priest decides to use prayer Kiara transcribed as the sacred object offering. Then he asks Kiara to take care of the sacred animal, a fox. Kiara decides to adopt the fox to tease Cassette. After the rite, the nuns begin gossiping about the disaster during the rite. As Rose passes by them, the nuns call her and inquire about what other things Cassette had done, particularly what happened at Lady Johanna's mansion. And the topic of Cosette's indecency starts to spread in the temple. The high priest, Kiara, and Cassette meet to formally address the incident. Since the temple tones down the punishment for Cassette, she kindly asks the high priest if a formal letter of apology from the Parvis Palace is enough for the temple to save face. The letter is to contain a sincere apology and a promise not to entrust any temple affairs to Cassette. Cassette strongly protests against it and says that even Mina's punishment was too much. However, Kiara tells her that Cassette must instead be thankful for being alive after committing a serious crime by ruining the rite. Cassette cannot retort any longer. On their way out after the meeting, Kiara thanks Cassette for giving her an opportunity to get rid of Mina. Cassette realizes the mess she's made. In addition to losing power over the temple, the House Parvis will have to write a formal letter of apology, something beyond shameful for the Duke. The Duke hears about what Cassette did in the temple and angrily demands an audience with her. Cassette appears in the furious Duke's office. The Duke expresses his disappointment, reprimanding her for causing a scene at the temple. He emphasizes that House Parvis has always maintained neutrality, taking great care to protect its reputation. Now, Cassette has brought disgrace to the duchy. The Duke regrets sending Cassette to the temple when he should have sent Kiara alone. He sternly warns her that she'll have no further involvement with the temple. Cassette protests, claiming it was just a mistake. The Duke then questions if what she did at Lady Johanna's estate was also just a mistake. I love seeing her get roasted. The Duke orders Cassette out and places her on probation, confining her to her room unless called upon. Desperate, Cassette tries to persuade the Duke to forgive her, seemingly attempting to hypnotize him. However, it doesn't work as a sudden flash of lightning and heavy rain snap the Duke out of his trance. He commands her again to leave his office. Outside, Cassette angrily grits her teeth, glaring at the rain through the window, and grudgingly utters the goddess's name, Beatrix. Meanwhile, in her room, Kiara wonders why the sudden downpour stopped just as suddenly. Zike, who is with her, plays with the fox. He initially named it Erez, but Kiara suggests naming her Eri instead. Emily arrives, informing them that Cassette has been put on probation. Finally, Kiara feels free to enjoy herself without Cosette's presence. She decides to take Ari for a walk and encounters Arthur and Joseph on her way out. Joseph, remembering the night of the party, stutters as he greets Kiara. Sensing Joseph's awkwardness, Arthur suggests Kiara visit the marketplace to buy things for the fox. Of course, she can't go alone, so Arthur volunteers Joseph to escort her. Arthur, the best wingman. Awkward air fills the carriage as Joseph and Kiara travel to the marketplace. In Kiara's mind, she believes she must have done something weird at the party that made Joseph awkward around her. Meanwhile, Joseph thinks how shameless he is for having personal feelings for Kiara when he should only loyally serve her as a knight. They're unnecessarily being hard on themselves for different reasons. When they arrive at the market, people stare at them, recognizing Joseph's Parvis uniform and Kiara as the Lady of Parvis. Kiara drags Joseph by his hand and runs away from the gawking audience. Joseph's heart flutters. They visit a men's boutique to buy clothes so they won't attract attention with Joseph's uniform. The receptionist hysterically asks forgiveness after she mistakenly calls the two a couple and learns that she's dealing with the Lady of Parvis. Joseph immediately tries on different clothes, and everything looks so good on him. Nothing plain would work to hide him from the public eye. Gosh, he's really very handsome. It simply isn't right to do this to my heart, Joseph. Kiara looks for another outfit that is plainer. This makes Joseph think that she doesn't like any of the clothes he tried. Kiara makes a Freudian slip when she tells Joseph that the problem is that she likes everything too much. Joseph turns red as a tomato while Kiara starts to realize something. I love the chemistry of these two. Joseph wonders why Kiara brought all the clothes he tried in the boutique. Kiara tells Joseph to consider all the clothes she bought for him as a gift. But deep inside, Kiara thinks everything looks good on him and she wants to see Joseph more in casual outfits. She realizes that it is the first time that she has given a gift to Joseph and decides to show more care for him in the future. After visiting the boutique, Kiara and Joseph freely explore the marketplace. After they pass by a cafe, Kiara recalls when she and Erez met after visiting Lady Johanna. As if on cue, Erez shows up with his blinding smile. It is the festival season, and Erez happens to look around the market when he sees Kiara. Kiara introduces Joseph to Erez. A painfully tight grip meets Erez's hand as he and Joseph shake. Weird vibes fill the air, like they're rivals or something. Erez notices the fox and tries to pet it, but the animal bites him. I pity his hands. Erez suggests getting a leash for Ari. Suddenly, Erez approaches Kiara in a dangerously close distance, like he always does, and reaches for Kiara's necklace. Joseph flinches. Joseph shoves Erez's hands away from Kiara and warns him to keep his distance from his lady. Behold, the Great Wall of Joseph. It turns out Erez only wants to magically turn Kiara's necklace into Ari's leash. The magical leash is invisibly connected to Kiara's necklace on the fox's collar. As they continue to roam around the market, bad energy lingers between Joseph and Erez. They pass by a stall, and the sales lady recruits them for a swordsmanship tournament. Kiara pushes Joseph and Erez to join the competition. The tournament begins between Joseph and Erez. Kiara thinks that Joseph has the upper hand since he's the captain of the knights. As the match begins, Kiara realizes that Erez can also wield the sword pretty well. However, Erez gets disqualified after he accidentally cuts off the referee's hair. In the end, Joseph wins, and Kiara gets all the prizes from the tournament. Joseph 1, Erez 0. Unsatisfied by the outcome, Erez suddenly brings up the time regression, but Kiara immediately interrupts Erez mid-sentence, saying this isn't the right place to discuss it. Suddenly, Erez grabs Kiara by the hips, and together they fly up into the sky. Joseph is left with Ari, wondering what just happened. Joseph 1, Erez 1. In the sky, Kiara can see the whole village and walk in the air thanks to Erez's magic. They end up on top of the clock tower where Kiara narrates what happened during the rite at the temple and how the Duke reacted. Though Erez praises Kiara for putting Cassette in her place, he reminds her that there is something more important. Nothing will change if Kiara cannot manifest the elemental power ahead of Cassette. A wave of anxiety surges Kiara as she remembers how her previous life ended. Erez notices the change in Kiara's expression, so he tries consoling her, thinking he said the wrong thing. Kiara snaps out of the fear she is feeling as she recalls the elementals that Cassette summoned. She doubts that they are real and thinks that Cassette must have used a trick. Erez demonstrates to Kiara water magic, however it doesn't look exactly like what Cassette summoned on that fateful day. it lacks the oomph. Erez tells her not to worry and assures her that he can let her regress, time travel as many times if things end badly. Kiara thanks Erez for being there for her. Erez realizes how strong-willed Kiara is, and together they enjoy the view. Joseph 1, Erez 2. When the night falls, Kiara and Erez return to the palace with teleporting magic. Joseph immediately finds them, and tension fills the air just as immediately. Before it turns into a bloodbath, Kiara commands Erez to leave, and the blonde magician teleported right away. Once inside, Joseph expresses his worries when Erez suddenly flies away with Kiara and feels sorry for failing as her knight. Kiara comforts him by saying nothing bad happened. Kiara takes the chance to give Joseph a cake that's only available during the festival. She notices that Joseph is already back in his knight's uniform. Before parting ways, Kiara reminds Joseph to wear the clothes she bought him every once in a while because he looks so great in them. Joseph blushes, remembering he received a lot of presents from Kiara. Joseph 2, Erez 2. Meanwhile, Cassette seems sick in her room and appears to be talking with an unseen entity. She mumbles how weak her body is, as if it isn't originally hers. I've got a feeling this isn't her real body, like something has possessed a girl's body. The voice reminds Cassette that her power is causing her body to weaken, recalling the time she tried manipulating the Duke. Cassette realizes that as long as Beatrix remains strong, she cannot use her powers freely. Although Cassette still has many cards left under her sleeves, if nothing works, she will use the method. For now, Cassette waits for the right time to strike. The next morning, Kiara is greeted by her servants in an excellent mood. Emily and Rose also feel relieved and free as Cassette is being grounded. Kiara recalls how she spent yesterday with the two guys and realizes that she got a lot closer to Erez than when they first met. Remembering her conversation with Erez regarding her situation, she immediately gets ready to research in the library. While preparing, Zeke asks if he can come with her, and they go to the Imperial Library together. Bella and Michael greet them at the gate, and before parting ways, Bella invites Kiara to a picnic party. As Kiara begins her research, she recalls the prophecy of the Elementalist. House Parvis was given a prophecy that only one Elementalist would be born in the next generation, and then Cassette suddenly appeared. In her past life, Cassette reveals that Kiara was the real daughter of the Duke before she was executed. Kiara ponders about the elementals Cassette summoned and compares it to what Erez showed her. It was different. She is sure that Cassette summoned real elementals. She suddenly remembers the story of the resonance between sisters, and Rowena Weinberg, the Duke's first wife. It is said that Rowena was pregnant when she was assassinated, and the fetus was also found dead. But if turned out alive, in horror, Kiara suspects Cassette must be her real half-sister. The prophecy has never failed before, so Kiara thinks that there could be an error in its interpretation. In the midst of her deep thoughts, Zeke interrupts her and shows her a book. Zeke hands Kiara a fairy tale book that his nanny used to read to him when he was younger. The story of the first elementalist goes like this. Once upon a time, a girl lived in a very chaotic world where humanity was at war with the demon race. The forest burned, and the land became barren as the war went on. The girl wished to stop the war, so she set out on a journey to find the goddess. As she continued walking, she reached a large lake and stopped to relieve her thirst. As she lowered her head, water drops rose from the lake, and the goddess appeared before her. The goddess listened to the girl's story and held out her hand towards the girl. The lake began to swirl and emitted bright light. The elementals spread out in all directions like shooting stars. As the light from the elementals touched the demons, they melted away. The leader of the demons, Ragabak, retreated back to the demonic world, and the war finally ended. The elementals brought back the life of the burned forest and healed the barren land. A large mirror was formed to protect the human world from an attack by demons. They gave humans the elemental crystal and promised their safety, and the world became peaceful. After reading the story, Zeke asks Kiara if she will also protect him like the girl in the story when she finally becomes the elementalist. Warmth fills Kiara's heart. Kiara returns to the palace and immediately barges inside Casette's rooms to check her condition. Surprisingly, Cassette is not faking and is actually sick. But Kiara isn't worried about Cassette. She is there to offer Cassette a solution to their situation. Kiara tells Cassette that she looked into her mother's background and thinks that they could both be the Duke's real daughter. Kiara believes that the prophecy is wrongly interpreted and proposes to Cassette that if they were both real daughters of the Duke, they should work together to manifest the elemental power at the same time. She is giving Cosette a last chance to be part of the Parvis house by doing the resonance of two sisters. She also tells Cosette that she got the elemental crystal of Beatrix and offers her to use it together. Kiara shows Cosette the crystal and makes her choose whether to work with her or lose the chance to use the crystal altogether. Suddenly, Cosette tackles Kiara and grabs the elemental crystal for herself. But as she holds the crystal, it breaks and shatters into pieces. Cosette realizes that it is just glass and Kiara has fooled her. Kiara is not so dumb to show Cosette the real crystal after all. She maybe doesn't have the real crystal at all. Now, Cosette has revealed her true colors and what she truly wants. Kiara now knows that the elemental crystal is more important to Cosette than anything else. She thanks Cosette for making her intentions clear. Cosette realizes how reckless she is after being fooled by a fake crystal. Now, Kiara is the one controlling the game. In a fit of rage, she attacks Kiara. However, Kiara catches her hand and deflects her attack. Kiara pushes Cosette to the ground, saying that she will not allow Cosette to strike her once more. Kiara bids her farewell and wishes her luck in facing things on her own. Before leaving, Kiara taunts Cosette by mentioning that she'll be accepting Princess Bella's picnic invitation while Cosette remains on probation. She then threatens to inform everyone about Cosette's situation. On her way back to her room, Kiara thinks about Cosette's goal after seeing how she reacted earlier. She realizes that Cosette's goal has something to do with the elemental crystal, and it is connected to the story of the first elementalist. Cosette wants the crystal for one of two purposes, either to extend the contract between humans and elementals or destroy it. Once the crystal is destroyed, the contact will end. Then the barrier that protects humanity from the demonic will break and the world will be thrown into chaos. And no normal person would do that. Kiara suspects that after Rowena and her unborn child died, the Count of Weinberg resented the Parvises and Kiara's grandfather. He would do anything to bring downfall to both families, even using forbidden dark magic to enter a contract with a demon. Cosette is Rowena Weinberg's real daughter, revived through dark magic to infiltrate the Parvis family and destroy the elemental crystal, bringing back the age of the demons. Ha! I knew something possessed Cosette's body. No wonder she's so creepy. Cosette is, in fact, Kiara's real half-sister. What do you think of this story so far? Please subscribe and turn on notifications for updates on this and all our other stories, so you can be the first to find out when they're out. Thank you so much for your support. See you in the next one!